Hello and welcome. Doug Adams here, Adams Corp, here on the floor of TechFest 2026, the leading automation and reliability trade show for the state of Florida. I'm here with three manufacturing leaders, Beth, Gallic, Lake Ray, Matt, Rocco. And I'm going to go back to each one of them and have them explain a little bit about who they are, what they do, and their organization.
Thank you, Doug. I'm Beth Gallic, the president of the Bay Area Manufacturers Association. We are the Manufacturing Regional Association for the Tampa Bay area, and this year we're celebrating our 65th anniversary as an association. Our association is here to advance Tampa Bay manufacturers' productivity through workforce development, networking, education, advocacy, and technology. And we really see ourselves as a connector and a translator for manufacturers. So really connecting them to the resources that they need, and also translating by having those keynote speakers, those expert speakers, peer-to-peer interactions, plant tours where they can learn best practices from other manufacturers. So those are some of the things that we really do to help our manufacturers in this region.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, thank you.
Lake?
Well, I'm Lake Ray with the First Coast Manufacturers Association. I've been the president now for over 12 years,
Wow.
And it's been a real honor to be here. Doug, thanks for putting this on. We're really happy that we have an opportunity to talk about manufacturing, things that are happening in the state, and certainly to see what's going on here with TechFest in 2026.
Excited. Thanks for having me.
Things are changing so fast, and so one of the things that we're doing in our association, which represents the Northeast Florida corridor, there's the top 6 counties of Nassau, Duval, St. Johns, Clay, Baker, and Putnam County. And we have been in existence now for 37 years. We were focused to begin with on what was happening in terms of policy that was happening in times past. People were rather not certain about what was happening with manufacturing. So when you have heavy processes and you have different things like paper, equipment, different flavors and fragrances that are being made, sometimes they tend to have obnoxious odors. And what was happening is they were throwing the baby and the bathwater out. And so the manufacturers got together and said, we need sound policy, we need real good discussions. And so the association was started. Since which time, we have been putting different programmings together for our manufacturers, platforms of which information can be shared, training our manufacturers. We have a very successful program that's called Leadership Academy. It's frontline supervisors, and there's other levels of it. We've had about 1,000 employees that have gone through that now. It's been very, very successful and very much continues to go forward. But we also continue to maintain our policy positions. We're always active in things locally and at the state level of things that are happening and impacting us as manufacturers. So in addition to all of that, we're always looking at ways of which we're connecting people, whether that's through our different committees. We have a committee structure, and so we're looking at ways to get people connected, doing our business-to-business networking, things of that nature, whether they are manufacturers or whether they're non-manufacturers, and we call them partners in our association. And so it's been very successful from that. And we always are looking at ways of which to improve. And so being here with TechFest, looking at where the future's going for manufacturing, we think it's a great opportunity, and it's great to be here with you.
Hey, thanks for coming. Matt?
Well, Doug, thank you very much for having us here.
Of course.
This is going to be amazing tomorrow. We're just getting set up. Glad to be here with everyone here on the panel, our friends from around the state. Matt Rocco, president of the South Florida Manufacturing Association, 6,000 plus manufacturers, over 100,000 employees in that region, and over a $9.5 billion GDP. So welcome to South Florida manufacturing. Beth and Lake shared a little bit about what they're doing for their associations and members. Very similar. At the end of the day, it's all about impact on manufacturing, all about how are we helping them get better as a company, recognizing challenges, opportunities, connectivity, resources, collaboration, and just creating a family environment. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you again.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started with a few questions we have. We'll go ahead, and, since you were talking last, we'll have you go first, okay?
Very good.
All right, so let's set the big picture, the state of local manufacturing. So in your region, manufacturing growing, shrinking, contracting, what's going on?
Yeah. I would say overall manufacturing is growing. We cover Miami-Dade County, Broward County, Palm Beach County, and then, excuse me, a little bit into the Treasure Coast. We'll have Martin County, St. Lucie County. We've seen a lot of manufacturers that are looking to go north. So if you're in Miami or Broward, due to cost and other things that are a little bit burdensome right now, they're looking into the Treasure Coast. We just had one manufacturer grow and expand, and they grew out to where they were, and now they're moving into Stewart. So lots happening there, and in our region, we have obviously automation that we're here for too, but marine is very big in South Florida, medical device, life science manufacturing. Believe it or not, printing and packaging is
quite a
still
bit down
pretty
there, surprisingly.
substantial.
Yes,
People wouldn't think about printing and packaging. So you have that as well. Aerospace and defense is pretty substantial down there as well. Very large clusters of what they call maintenance, repair, and overhaul for aviation. So some big companies down there doing some good things. But you have a lot of smaller manufacturers. I know it's probably consistent in Beth's region, Lakes region as well. The average size down, and really consistent with the state, but at least in our region, average size, you're going to have 50 employees or less. Mostly probably 25 or less. But you could be in a 12-person machine shop that's doing work for producing parts for fighter jets, and you can go into a 300-person medical device manufacturer. So
on the same street.
On the same street, right?
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful time to be in Florida for manufacturing because of the diversity of manufacturers and what they're doing, and the state's grown in manufacturing over the last 10 or 12 years tremendously. So you see some contraction in some areas, but overall we're seeing at least a steady trajectory still.
Correct. Lake, how about you?
Great, Doug. Well, thanks. I think that Matt's really hit on a lot of things. I think it's happening regionally. I think what we're seeing here in the state has been a transformation. It began in COVID, and as it began, what we saw is companies that were fed up with other sectors of the other areas of the country, and they were looking, and some of them, I was getting calls, 2 or 3 calls at least a week, and I'm sure that my colleagues here are probably getting the same thing. And they're looking, they're asking, well, one is, what's the workforce? What does your workforce look like, and what are you doing? And does your county and city government, do they work with you? So that there was a lot of that was going on. Some of it slowed a little bit as we emerged out of coming out of COVID. But the reality is that the fire has been set, the flame is moving, and we're seeing a lot of growth. We're seeing a lot of that, of course, now in technology, advanced technology and manufacturing in it. I think that what we're seeing is something that's truly amazing, being here and seeing your event as we go forward. It's absolutely amazing the number of things that are made and how they're all going together. Who's making what? Who's making them where? Some of the companies that are in Jacksonville that you're serving here, Johnson & Johnson, or our vacuum trucks. Whether it's high-end medical devices that are made there in Jacksonville, or whether we're making cans. And I always love to tell the story about the cans that we have. The Metal Container Corporation, and they make cans for Coca-Cola, they make cans for Pepsi, they make cans for the Budweiser and right on. And it's just amazing that to go in and to watch where all of this is taking us, because we're producing right now 9 million cans a day. And it's like it just,
that's amazing.
Bam, it just moves and flies. They're checked. And it's just amazing at all the different things that are happening. In our region, I have to say, I always have to stop and think about all the things that are made, because it's more about what I'm thinking about that day, but we have so many things that are either coming into or being distributed out of our state, or that we're getting some of our materials to make things from down here in Tampa or down in South Florida. And as we see technology increase, you're going to see this continual, what I believe is going to be a continual move of what's going on at the time. As technology is changing, you're on the cutting edge here. You're absolutely on the cutting edge. And as things happen, you're probably going to be gravitating around to what somebody else is seeing and emerging. And it's going to be challenging, exciting, and I think the future is just fantastic, not just in our region, but for our entire state.
We were just meeting with a new manufacturing member last week, and he's being proactive and trying to get more business with the company. He had just purchased the company, and he said he started to go around to local other manufacturers that are just in the street next door, and he said they didn't even know he existed.
Right, exactly.
And they had been there a number of years. So really, there is so much manufacturing we don't even know it's
Right,
there.
I know, it's tough to reach everybody.
And it's always amazing. It just mind-boggling at what's needed. Whether it's steel or whether it's fragrances and flavors and different things that,
It's why it's so important to get involved with associations. There's countless new customers that I've met and relationships we've built just coming to events that you guys have. And it's a lot of, I didn't know you could do that, or I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know. And sometimes it's just linking up with one manufacturer that doesn't know about another manufacturer, but they build a relationship with it, keeps all the manufacturing here, which that's where the growth is going to happen. I understand there's regions per se, but they're all starting to blend with one another. But Florida is an ecosystem. There is a lot of capability from, all the way from raw material, machining, finished product, coatings, painting, all the different aspects that you would need to manufacture a given part. There's a lot of different companies that do that. But the one thing about manufacturing is typically they're not the greatest marketers. So it's trying to get the word out. And you have a big transition, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years of a generation that's going to be retiring. And a lot of them don't necessarily have succession plans. Are you starting to see that kind of in your area? And I know you mentioned somebody just bought that company. Typically what we're seeing a lot of our customers is, that it was a family business, maybe second or third generation, and that next generation might not be interested, or maybe there isn't a generation behind it. So are you starting to see that, and what's going on with some of those organizations?
I think you're seeing, I absolutely do think you're seeing a lot of that. I think that the three of us have seen and know that somewhere around 50% of the workforce will be retired in the next 10 to 15 years.
Right.
And it's moving in close.
It's a scary number when you think about it.
Well, it's a scary number in one way, but I have talked to some other people, and it's like those of us that are in the more traditional skill set, they are not as adapted to being able to change to some of the digital technical platforms. And so you're starting with those that are coming in, they're younger, but they don't have the traditional skill set. So there is some vacuum that's in there. But you're right in terms of where are companies going and what you're seeing. We're definitely seeing that. One of the things that we started our association that I mentioned is the Leadership Academy, but it's frontline supervisors. And what we have found, true to what you're saying with manufacturers, is that you start with somebody who has a great idea and they make something. The next thing is they're in business. And it's not that they don't try to be good business operators, but they don't know. We've seen people come in that think they're having a great year, better than they had last year, and they're about to go bankrupt, because they don't know how to manage the monies and the cash flow and things of that nature. So one thing, because of that and because of companies that are going out, we started something called the Frontline Supervisors. It's basically something where you're seeing companies that want to advance somebody. Somebody's a good worker, and they know their skill and they're really good at it. And traditionally we've just kind of bumped them up and moved them up. The problem is that you bump them up, it's like they don't know how to manage people.
Right, the skill's not necessarily, they've gotten the promotion, but they don't necessarily have the skill set where they need to be.
And now they have to manage their friends.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
And so
Managing your
gets-
friends, yeah.
it gets
We were
tricky.
buddies on Friday, but now I'm your boss.
Right,
That's not going to be,
No.
yeah.
And
it's a
that
tough thing.
relationship
And you gotta
from
teach them how to
top
deal with that.
management down, so it's a lot of different things. And so we're seeing that, and that's the first void that we've seen.
Right.
And it's something, it's not necessarily new, because it's kind of gone on. But if your company's going to be successful, give them the tools, help them train so they can work.
Gotcha.
Right.
And
We're actually, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're working with St. Pete College.
I was going to ask about that. I know St. Pete and HCC are both contributors to the local market. I'm a HCC alum.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
A little partial.
So we love, partnering with the schools, and we're coming up with a succession planning 4-year plan where we're taking the manufacturer for wherever they're at. Are they new? Are they just starting to think about their succession plan? Are they a little further down the line? And giving them those resources that they need to make those clear choices while they can, before it becomes too late.
Right.
And it's something, maybe it's a health issue and they have to transfer the company over. So we're really trying to equip them with as much as we can, as much knowledge, so that they can do it in a thoughtful way, so they're planning for it. So we have lots of events coming up. We have an event coming up next month where we're really getting a lot of those experts together in one place so that we can provide the information, so they can, like I said, reach them where they're at.
That was the family business transition talk. I can't remember where exactly it is, but I did see that. That's going to be excellent.
Yes.
That will be excellent. So what about you, Matt? What are you seeing down there from a transitional standpoint? And then, as Lake was mentioning, there's going to be an entire generation that's going to essentially retire out. So how are they going to backfill those? What are you seeing down there on how companies are going to kind of adapt to that?
Yeah, the succession is a very challenging thing, especially for family business, because I forget the exact statistic, but there's a bunch of statistics out there that when it goes from one generation to the other, the further down it goes, the higher they don't want the business.
Correct.
So if you don't plan properly and you think, my children will take it over, then we've seen companies fold because of that. And it doesn't happen. Or they get bought out by private equity.
Usually private equity.
Right. Usually that. So that's a big thing. So I think the education piece of that is pretty substantial as well. On the what do we do with the exit of those that have been in manufacturing quite some time? That's a constant struggle for us. We're looking at creating a pre-apprenticeship program.
Okay.
So we can,
which has kind of gone away.
Which is kind of gone away.
At the customer level, there used to be apprenticeships in all the big companies, and they've gotten away from it. So we've got to create our own. Essentially, is what I'm hearing.
We have an existing apprenticeship, but we're looking at the pre-apprenticeship, right? So going in before they get into college to really help them get into manufacturing, because I think it's going to be a constant struggle. I think every trade has its challenges of workforce, but working with the colleges is, doing something like that's a huge thing as well, because we're going to need the younger generation to step up.
And that's a marketing problem, I think, too.
It's a marketing problem.
I think we haven't told these young people that there's an opportunity for them in the manufacturing world that traditionally comes at a maximum of 4-year degree, but potentially after a 2-year degree. With very minimal, if no, student debt, which is a huge deal. So they're coming out and they're making a very fair wage with plenty of upside potential, great benefits at a lot of these places, and going through the programs within a lot of the customers that we have, we see people, they're getting promotions every 12 to 18 months, with the right skills and behaviors. So there's plenty of upside. It's just I don't think there's a lot of kids that are in 8th, 9th, 10th grade now that know that this is a potential.
Right.
I think it's beginning to change.
Is it?
Because people are looking and they're seeing the cost of an education.
Right, it's very expensive.
And and that as long as that education is something that they're putting on, the cost that's on the burden of them to pay for that, they're starting to recalculate that. And I'm seeing it more and more where you've got people coming out of high school and continuing down that other path. Doug, there's one other thing, if I may, back on the original question here. I think there's one other dynamic that's happening as well, and that's that companies are hitting a fork in the road, if you will, and they're having to make a decision. They're either going to change and transition into the so-called industrial age 4.0 that we've had some discussions on, or the digital platforming, or they're not. And I think that you're also going to see companies that are going to and are making a decision not to go in that path. And so they're going to, if you will, flame out, that they're not going to be able to survive. But I think they're making some deliberate decisions on the level of investment, and if they're not committed to that transition, then you'll see companies that will go away.
And those are typically ripe for private equity. It's one of those things. I think we talked at that event a couple weeks ago about that, and there was a banker, I think, there was asking that same question, like, is there a science to how much I should have to invest, or I should invest, to essentially make my company digital ready? Because he has investors, and he's investing in companies, and I wish it were that easy. We do that with a lot of customers. That's a key portion of our business, is we help them through that digital journey. But everyone starts at a different place, right? And it really comes down to what's the time horizon of the business too. So if they might have a 5-year exit strategy, it's a very different, determination on investment than maybe a 50 or 100 year. If you think this is a generational business, and that's on the small to medium sized business that's typically private, or privately owned by private equity. The big companies, they're already embracing it. The majority of them, they have to, or they just wouldn't necessarily be, where they are or what they're going to need to be. And a lot of that's driven by corporate. It's not necessarily here. So then we see a lot of that coming down from their corporate organization on technologies and systems and processes that they should be using, and they're all great. But what we see is that then customers are given kind of a sandbox that they need to play in, but then they have to figure it out locally. And that's where they need the skill sets and the resources to potentially help from all of our organizations to help them get there.
Right.
Yeah. On the workforce piece too, I think something very good was brought out. The message has to get out better to the younger
Correct.
generation to know that the opportunity is there, because I think the last time I looked, the average salary for manufacturing is somewhere around $75,000 or $78,000 in the state of Florida.
Plus benefits.
Plus benefits.
Yeah, excellent benefits.
Yeah.
Too.
To I think
And a
Beth, you
fight
mentioned
to keep the employees.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Right.
You go to college, whether you go to a state college or a technical school, trade school. I mean, you talk about little debt,
If any.
right? And
Right.
so
And trying to reach the students, we try all different ways with, Manufacturing Month. It's in October, so we have the students tour manufacturing facilities so they really can see firsthand what manufacturing looks like. They can experience it, and those kids are so excited.
Absolutely.
We've also tried recently, we just had an event where we had 28 career counselors from each Hillsborough County school come to one of our manufacturing facilities. We had 5 manufacturers present to them about what their company does, what they look for in an employee, what the salaries are, what positions are available. So we're educating those career counselors so then they can go and talk to the students and make sure that they're as educated as possible. And then they got to tour the manufacturing facility. So again, they got to see firsthand. So these are some of the ways, out of the box thinking on how we can get to these students.
Yeah, that's the guide.
That's
that's
how to
excellent.
get to the students, because when they see manufacturing, and I've asked them. Last week we were at a manufacturer, a huge jet engine manufacturer, and there were students that were filming because we're doing a student video competition. And I said, "So, what did you think?" They said, "We had no idea this was even here."
Right.
I think
Hear that all the time.
Right. Getting them
there's one
introduced.
precursor
planting
to that,
seed.
though. The precursor to that is we need to get to the parents.
Yeah.
Because there's been a conversation that's been out there for a long time, and it's that if you want a good career, you got to go get an education. And unfortunately, the education institutes have risen to the occasion of getting degrees out, but they're degrees that don't give them skill sets
Correct.
to do anything. And what we've saddled them in is a belief that they can go get a 4-year degree or so and come out, and that they're going to have this great lifestyle, and it's just not true. And so I think we have to have the conversation with the parents, and how do we get to them?
Right.
Because they just want something that's good for their children.
Right.
And when they realize that $70,000, $80,000 job, and you're aware as I am that some of these jobs in welding, for example, are getting over 6 figures, a year. And so those are things to get excited about. And it's also helping keep the aptitude of those children in line with what their capabilities are, rather than putting them into an academic environment that basically sets them up for failure.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. When I remember going through school, and it was all you need to get a 4-year degree. I don't care what it is, just get a 4-year degree, prove that you can finish. But that's no longer the case, because especially with technology changing as fast as it is, there's plenty of degrees that might not be applicable 5 years from now. With AI and all the changes that we're going to have. We talked a little bit about that event a couple weeks ago. Was coding. Everyone said everyone used to be a coder. Well, code's writing itself now. So now understanding, holistically how code is written and system architecture, I think that is truly a skill that will never be replaced totally with AI. But it's a very different from a creative standpoint, where it's just a a plain Jane regular coder, you're going to come out and you're going to be replaced by a machine. So you have to be very mindful of where the market's going and what that's going to look like. Okay, so a couple other questions from our list here. So we've talked about labor, we've talked about transition. What are you thinking? What are you seeing from a regulatory standpoint? I know you just went up to Tallahassee. What are you seeing from a regulatory standpoint in our state? We'll start with you, because did you all go to Tallahassee you guys were all there? I was the only one that wasn't there.
2 different weeks.
Okay, but you're all there. Did you tell our
good.
politicians what they needed to do? So we'll start with you. What did you hear? It seems like the previous 2 administrations from a governmental standpoint for Florida have been, I would say, somewhat pro-manufacturing. Certainly not against it. We've attracted a lot of big business here. But what did you hear on what they're working on, and what can we expect over the next couple of years?
Pretty much every legislator that we talked to was very interested in what we had to say. They're very open to, of course, they want to see new jobs formed. They like the jobs that manufacturers are bringing to the table. For every one manufacturing job, there's 7 other jobs that are created in other industries. So it's the great multiplier effect. So who wouldn't like that? So manufacturing is a very strong industry. We're starting to be known as a manufacturing state. So we get great support from our legislators when we go and talk to them. We try to keep in good contact with them throughout the year, and not just once a year when we go to Tallahassee, but we are inviting them into our manufacturing facilities. So again, they can stay connected, and our manufacturers can form that relationship with our legislators. So we really think that that's very important moving forward, that they do, also the business owners keep that good relationship, so that when something comes up that's needed, they can go to someone and they already have that relationship.
Gotcha. Excellent.
Well, Doug, I will tell you, I think that a couple of different aspects. First, in the legislative process, and in the state, we meet every either January to March or March to May, depending on which particular year it is. But there's a lot of support for it. The governor is certainly very supportive of manufacturers, and you're seeing it stem down from the presidential level on down. So we're seeing a lot of focus, a lot of interest. If you roll the clock back 5 years ago, everybody's saying we're all going to be out of business. We don't need manufacturing, or it was going to leave us.
Which I do think is true. I don't think the previous administration nationally felt that manufacturing was important, whereas I do the current.
I don't think so. I think that we saw a lot of scalpers, if you will, in terms of selling our businesses off and going abroad. I think some of that played itself out partly into tariffs, and I'm not going to speak one way or the other to tariffs. I think that
they are what they are.
I think it was a pathway to try to level the playing field and to try to stop the exodus of our manufacturing base. I think if you look at what's happened worldwide, it's very interesting, because right now the world wants U.S.-made products, and which is very different. Most people think that that's not true, but they do, because we stand behind our products. Our workforce, at least traditionally, has been the highest productivity workforce in the world by far. And you add on top of that when you get the differential in terms of the productivity and the cost of the labor, it starts to cross to where it's not that big of a difference.
Correct.
And then you get into the cost of transporting. So it's about a 6 to 8% differential. The world as a whole is looking at, and will buy our products as long as we keep the regulatory issue that you were talking about down. Here at the federal level, the last I checked, you have something like 480,000 regulations on manufacturers. That's an insane number. But incorporated in that is donut making is a manufacturer.
Right. True.
So it's about who and what, and so when we talk manufacturing, it's a broader spectrum. But I don't think the problem is the state. There are some regulatory issues as it relates to environmental issues, but by and large, where the challenge is what's happening at the federal level. And so We're beginning to see that push back. I know that the current administration is looking and they're saying, if you put one regulation on, I want two going off.
Right.
So, if we maintain that as a policy, I think you're going to see it streamline and benefit all of us.
Yeah, it has to become easier to invest. That's the biggest challenge that a lot of our customers talk about is just a regulatory piece. And in some industries, aerospace and defense, medical device, it's critical that that happens, right? Because we're talking about patient safety, soldier safety, all those different types of things. But there's certain rules and regulations that are just a rule and a regulation, it seems like, just because they were. And it's trying to get those modified, changed, adjusted, so it's easier for our customers, our manufacturing clients to do more what they're supposed to be doing. That's manufacturing things.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? What did you see on your trip up to Tallahassee?
Yeah, I think if you look at the awareness of manufacturing, a legislator, let's say 5 years ago to now, is totally different. Like, they're all about manufacturing.
Really? That's great.
They realize the importance of it, and they hear it, and they understand it, right? So I think the message has gotten out to a lot of them, which is good. You talk about regulations, not so much at a state level, but at a federal level, it's a needed regulation because of security, but when you talk about the majority of manufacturers in the US are small. When you talk about aviation and defense and military, the cybersecurity,
correct,
it's called CMMC certification, but cybersecurity maturity, I hate acronyms because you forget what it means, but every manufacturer knows the CMC. The cost and the burden is very high for these manufacturers. And some can't compete because of it.
Correct.
Right? But we know the regulation needs to be there because of
Right.
security for our country.
Correct.
So that is a regulation, although well-intended and needed, but the unintended effect is it's hard for a smaller manufacturer to pay for the training, implement it, do the continuous monitoring. Some of it, if 80% of the business is that, they can't survive.
Right.
So that's a big regulation where, maybe some cost relief or burden can be helpful, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
But a lot of our I'm sure you have clients too in that
Well,
space.
CMMC, like we've gone down this path.
Oh, you have? Okay, yeah.
We're
You level one?
we will be level two by when, Nate? We will be level 2 by October, and it's very expensive.
Very expensive.
And the money aside, it really comes down to the people and time investment
Yes.
and process change
Right.
and how we go about things.
Yep.
But we have so many customers in aerospace and defense. We just viewed it was critical to our business.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that we potentially could have done with those resource dollars, but we made an investment to do that because I don't think it's changing.
No, it's not.
And I think it's potentially going to get more challenging as cybersecurity becomes more and more of a threat, more and more of an importance, but cyber attacks become more of a threat, especially in critical defense infrastructure with the geopolitical stuff that's going on right now. Like it's just going to be more and more important. But I do feel for the small to medium-sized manufacturer because one, it's expensive, but there's not the best guide out there.
No, there's not.
So you have to hire experts that are learning as they go too.
Right.
So we're literally building the plane as we're flying this thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a challenge. We have a great resource on our team, Nate Valentin. He's helped us tremendously through this process. But we looked at it as a strategic investment to be able to help those customers. But it's one of those things that it can be very prohibitive from doing other things. And I could see some small to medium-sized businesses that might just get out of that particular industry.
Some can't afford it.
They just can't afford it.
They just can't.
Right.
And if they don't have the infrastructure, so if their systems are antiquated,
Correct. That's
now
the
they
other
have to
side.
go. That's just
So it's a double upgrade.
It's a double.
So on the topic of cybersecurity, we're also having a lot of conversations. I know, big shocker on AI. AI in every aspect of the business. Internal operations, sales and marketing, accounts receivable, accounts payable, all the back house transactions that you're going to see within an organization. But what are you guys seeing and hearing from your members on AI and how they're leveraging in the manufacturing environment? You want to go ahead and start, Matt?
Sure. AI? What's that?
Yeah, I know.
Are we past it already?
Yeah.
I thought just another version? Pass us by. No, AI is an interesting topic, and I don't know, Beth and Lake, if you're experiencing this. I find some manufacturers are scared the heck out of AI, scared of technology, don't understand it, think it's too expensive. Some of it is, but some of it is not.
So it doesn't cost anything.
Right, exactly. Some is free, but I think the challenge is how to navigate through all of it and how to implement it, right? So that's where we all come in, right? All of our resources, all of our partners, all of our, like you all are in South Florida a lot and up in, Lakes region, and obviously here with Beth. I even had a conversation with, and talking about technology and leveraging AI, this was really cool. I have one of our manufacturers produced this this AI product where for companies, and there are a lot of them that don't have proper standard operating procedures.
Okay.
And when you're smaller in size and Matt, who's been there for 35 years, retires, walks out the door, what happens to your SOPs? They're out the door.
Yeah, tribal
now
knowledge.
What do you do? Tribal knowledge,
Yeah.
right? That happens all the time, right? So I have one of our manufacturers actually developed technology. Now is working with one of our other manufacturers, 12th person in the marine industry, right? They had no SOPs, needed it. Now is working with them to create it on a faster pace. So just using that. And
Right.
and when he shared with me with the cost, where I said, that's it? He says, yeah, that's all we're charging. It's not that expensive. So I think it's understanding the business, connecting with the right folks that have the resources to help you kind of navigate through
Right.
that. We were just talking about AI at the event we had
Correct.
with Visage a couple weeks ago. A lot of conversations on that. The bigger companies, I think one of us mentioned it, they're adopting it. It's coming from corporate. They've got the resources to do it. I think for the smaller companies, the challenge is really not understanding how it fits in their business, how to implement it, and the cost. So I think it's our job to bring those opportunities to them and educate them and start implementing it. But companies realize that it's here. It's
here.
to stay. Like you mentioned, if you're not adopting it, you're going to be out with the flame, right? The flame's going to go out, and you're going to be, a lifestyle business and not moving where you want to be.
I think we could probably all agree that right here, that there are companies that are thriving today that will not make that transition, that will be challenging or be challenged greatly and or out of business in 5 years.
Yeah.
And companies that don't even exist today that will be thriving in 5 years.
Yeah, that's a very good
how
analogy.
fast things
Yeah.
are moving. But
We had a couple years ago at one of our events, he was, not anymore, but he was the CEO of GE Digital. He came down and spoke.
I remember that talk.
You were there, yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Way over their head. And this was in probably 2018 or 19, one of the two.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really early on talking, Industry 4.0 was coming out then, and talking about all this, what's happening. It just went way over their heads. But what he was saying is here today. Right? Yeah.
I think what I'm seeing with some of our folks is it's interesting because as an association, we're always asking, what's on your mind? What, when we're putting a program together, and I know that my colleagues here also do the same thing. What's on your mind? How can we answer that? Whether it's putting on a symposium, a conference, or a training program. But what I find is that there are, with AI, there are three types of people that are out there. One is they're still in the wanting to know what it is.
Right, fact finding.
I think there's still a lot of not really sure what it is. The next one is that they've adopted it, and they're kind of, how do I fully utilize this? And then you got the one that has fully adopted it, and how do I maximize this? So I think you got three different components of AI when we're talking with our manufacturers. And I can't say that I know where all of them are on it, but I can say that everybody's at least entering the conversation. And, I think it's going to be an amazing time because Matt gave some great examples of things, and I'm finding just the little things that I'm doing. It's easy to put something in, say, do some research on a regulation. We're talking regulation. It'll spit it back out to you.
Yeah, we hope it's right.
We hope it's right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's right.
Thing, right?
But to your point, is it right or the information? And we know that
It's usually right.
We know that each of the AI platforms have a different, I'll use the term bias.
They don't like when you say they have a bias, but they all have a bias.
But they're
programmed by humans. Come on.
Exactly. Right?
And so you have to filter through that bias and know that what you're going to get back fits whatever's in there.
Yeah.
And by and large, for the most part, that's not a problem. But if I am doing a regulation check, it's like if I have somebody that's really big into, that's programmed something and has no problem with regulations, you're going to have a hard time getting a good answer out.
Right.
Right.
What are you seeing, Beth?
We have the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with a lot of our manufacturing business owners, and really they did express a lot of confusion, a lot of concern. You know, they're hearing lots of things, and they don't want to just adopt technology for technology's sake. They really want to make sure it's working with them on what their needs are, and really they're looking to increase their throughput, their quality, and their customer satisfaction. So some of the things that they're really interested in is how can AI help them with the repetitive tasks some of their employees are doing. They're not looking to replace the employees, but potentially upskill them. So looking for those types of replacements, predictive maintenance, forecasting, so things that they can really use in their business to help them become more productive and more valuable.
I think what you guys are all seeing is what we're seeing as well. You know, we're in typically anywhere from 100 and 150 customers between Florida and Alabama a week with our sales team and engineers, and everyone's kind of in the same boat. They don't necessarily know what exactly they need to do, but they do need to have some sort of plan to start to bring it into their business. Now, some of the bigger companies, they're fully embracing it. You know, the companies that you mentioned, but they're kind of secretive about it because they look at that as their secret sauce. But I do think, back to our previous discussion about being able to mitigate the next generation aging out, I do think we're going to be able to leverage this technology to help these customers and facilities be more productive. In the advent of a labor shortage, I don't think a lot of this is going to replace people. It's going to certainly augment people and make them more efficient, and hopefully help them all make more money in their profession. A couple of the things that we're doing here at Adams, we help customers deploy it, and a lot of it's around robotic technology or error inspection, so quality inspection using AI vision, and then leveraging it to move robots around, and also generate code. So we can develop automation solutions faster based on leveraging the code that is generated through AI systems. Now, it's always checked by a human, but those are the types of things that help automation become lower cost, which helps the ROI make sense. But it also allows, from a skill set standpoint, you might not need a super high level programmer to be able to implement these solutions, which then allows customers to train up their team faster so they can develop the solutions. We've implemented on the inside of our office and our back office in regards to order processing and PDF reading. It's amazing technology, but it's been a journey, right? It's certainly a process, and it's not for the faint of heart, and it certainly costs a lot of money from an investment standpoint, but you're on the other side, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
All right, so last question here. Really appreciate you guys coming down. So, Beth, what are you looking at tomorrow as you're walking around from a technology standpoint, potentially help all of your members within BAMA?
So a lot of the concerns that we see is also with safety, the safety of their employees. So how can they prevent their employees from having those accidents on the floor? So a lot of it is the lifting. That's always been a real concern with manufacturers, to make sure that their employees are doing it safely. So I'm really interested to see some of the robots that might be here that can lift and do those things to keep their employees safe, so they can do those repetitive tasks instead of having their employees do them.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, we have that, both a robot doing it, and we also have a human lift assist. So both technologies where there's certain objects that you'd never want a human to lift, those superhuman type strength. But then there's some boxes or items that could be lifted by a human, still not necessarily ideal. Repetitive industries, things like that, with multitude of different technologies, and safety is a big portion of where we focus first, because I don't care how automated something is if something's not safe. Everyone needs to go home safe.
Right.
So critical, multiple different things around fork trucks and safety scanners and light scanners and all those different things that potentially could help do that. How about you,
Well, I think the one thing that we're looking forward to seeing, first, let me thank you for
absolutely.
putting this together. It's been great to come and talk with my colleagues and talk with you and see what's going on in terms of the technical advances. It's changing all so incredibly fast that it makes all of our heads spin, and it makes business planning very complicated and very difficult. But I think the one thing that we'll be seeing here will be different components that service different robotics, different components that have either been looked at or how they're changing, and how they all go to this new platforming that we're seeing come out. And I think that it's just extraordinarily exciting It's very unbelievable. And I think Beth kind of hit some of that in terms of the safety for our employees.
Yep.
But also, I think whether we like what I'm going to say or not, is we have to look at that workforce, at the predictability of the workforce, and you get predictability out of robotics. You get predictability in things, and therefore, if you're in manufacturing, you're looking for that predictability, whether it's what the product is that's being made, whether it's being assembled, where it's being moved, or how it's being distributed. All of those are challenges, and what you have going here with TechFest is either directly connected to that, or it is certainly a part of that conversation. I know a number of our manufacturers in Northeast Florida, they're getting a number of your components, things that I had no idea what they're getting and putting in. And so I think it's just always going to be exciting. I think 3 months from now you could do it again and we'll probably see a whole new evolution or next generation of things that are happening. But again, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big discussion we have when we only select our vendor partners that we truly think are going to help us live out our mission, and that's help strengthen American manufacturing. We're very adamant that they need to bring new stuff every year. I don't want to see the same trade show booth, right? I want to see different technologies because our customers' time is valuable. And if they're here and they've seen the same thing that they saw last year, they're seeing it this year, they're probably not going to come next year. And we really do what I think is a very good job of making sure that all the technology you're going to see every year is new, right? And you could immediately go back and have a discussion at your facility and make an impact on your business. So what are you looking at seeing tomorrow there, Matt?
Excellent. Again, thank you for having us today. This is my first time coming to TechFest, so I'm extremely excited to see really what's out there. 500 people coming tomorrow, registered for 500, and this is amazing. So I'm particularly interested in connecting with all the folks here tomorrow, seeing all the trade show booths and the vendors here, seeing what could be, hey, I think there's a connection for you in South Florida. And then also saying for next year for TechFest, to our members, hey, you need to come to this because of these reasons. So I'm really here to learn, explore, meet, connect, and collaborate, and see what resources are there for everybody.
There's the one thing, you can't recruit one manufacturer to move from one of their respective, okay? So we're going to be careful with that, all right? I don't want to get any...
Hands off.
Yeah, you guys are very friendly today.
The costs are a little bit crazy down there, so I think one time they look at the costs where they're at, we'll stay.
Yeah, the rental per square foot I've seen in South Florida.
25, 30 square foot?
Yeah, 20. It's a little bit more competitive in Jacksonville, I would say. Tampa's not much better right now.
No, I don't think there's an issue.
And you're always welcome to come to Jacksonville.
I want to thank you all for coming today. Everyone has busy schedules. It's a big investment to come today, but also tomorrow. And the work that you all do is so important. And I think it's one of those things where, back to the marketing, if you're a small to medium, large manufacturer in the state of Florida in one of their regions, or any region, we can link you up with their counterpart in any region. Get involved with the local manufacturing association, find out what resources are available, network with other manufacturers. It most likely will mean new business and new opportunities for you. But the biggest thing is that you don't have to solve all these problems yourself. These resources are available, whether it's at TechFest or an association event or whatever it is. Get out in the market, understand what's needed so you can help grow your business.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. It was
Thank
fun.
you. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.